The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Okay, I'm going to start officially and introduce our speaker tonight. If you drive down any road in the city of Fort Wayne, any major street, you'll go by a lot of used car lots. And back in 1989, our speaker tonight owned one of those car lots. But he had a vision. He wanted to grow his company. And he used three things, I think, to do it from what I've observed. Great customer service. He built relationships with his customers, gives free car washes for life, takes care of his customers, and he also knows a lot about branding and marketing and growing companies that he's learned over the years. So he's been very, very successful. Unlike all those other lots that are still small lots, I wouldn't even call his a lot. I would call it a used car dealership. He's got 6 in the area. And then he also has 2 state-of-the-art repair centers here, or service centers, or whatever you call them. So, besides that, I'm not going to say any more. I'm just going to introduce Jay Leonard.
Thank you. First off, thank you very much for having me here and for taking time out of your busy schedule to allow me to speak to you. I'm going to move this. There we go. You got it right. I mean, that's about it. I mean, I in 1989 I started Preferred Auto, but I think the unique thing about me starting my own dealership wasn't the fact that I had a vision. It was the fact that I fell in love. I had a young lady that I was in love with, and I asked her to marry me. At the time, I worked for Jim Kelly. I started in 1984 with Bill Hefner, and then Jim Kelly bought it. And when Jim Kelly bought the dealership, I was in management. I'd only sold cars for 6 months, and they moved me up to manager. I was salesman of the month 4 out of the first 6 months. I never sold a car in my life. I watched the movie Used Cars. And one of my buddies said, when Kurt Russell said something like, "Mrs. Rodriguez, this car is perfect for you because the tires match the color of your hair," that was the selling point, and I thought it was hilarious. And so I came in and started selling cars. And I loved it. No intention to stay in. My father was in the insurance business. I was going to get in the insurance business with my dad. So I moved into the finance office where we sell insurance. And so I was going to learn the insurance part through that, and I was going to go to college, and I was going to get my degree, and that was all in the plan. And I had dropped out. I'll go backwards again. I went to New Haven High School. I dropped out of college after 6 months. They forced me out of college after 6 months. As my dad would have said back then, he said, "You drank yourself out of college in 6 months." I went to Ball State, and it just wasn't for me. Kind of difficult because I come from a family. My dad went to Notre Dame and graduated from there. My older brother graduated in the second in his class at the university that he went to at Hanover University. My younger brother has his master's and is he could be a professor, but he is still in high school. He's in charge of the English department at the high school because he absolutely loves the children. And he went to Manchester and graduated top of his class. And then there's me, who drank his way out of Ball State in 6 months. And but I had every intention to go back to school. And so that was what I was going to do for Bill Hefner and for then Jim Kelly. And I remember Jim asking my grandmother if he could trust me. And that's the only question he had for my grandmother when she came to visit me at my new job. And she said, with your life. And I moved up the ladder pretty quick in the next 4 years, thanks to my grandma. And I learned everything about the car business. That's really what I just fell in love with it. Throughout this period, unfortunately, my father was killed in an automobile accident, and so the insurance thing went to the back. I didn't want to go into business with this partner. I was falling in love, more and more in love with the car business, so this is what I wanted to do. Then this lady comes into my life, and I asked her to marry me. And she said no. And I said, well, why not? And she said, you work too much. So what are you talking about? I said, I'm making $120,000 a year. I'm 27 years old. I drive a brand new Corvette. I just built a brand new house. What doesn't get any better than this? What do you mean? She said, well, my dad worked for Dana. His top pay was $42,000 a year. He raised 8 children. He was home every single night for dinner. She turned around and walked away. So she pretty much set the tone for me. Either I could be rich and lonely, or I could make some changes in my priorities. And I did. 2 weeks later, I walked out. I started Preferred Auto. I didn't have a place to sell a car. I didn't have a building to do it in. I didn't have a dealer's license. I just had a vision. I had an idea. I had a dream. And so I sold my first car at the back of a BMW that I had bought. I was going in to pick up some Tic Tacs at Walgreens and walked in. I told the girl I was an automotive consultant, and if I could help her in any way, let me know. And she said, my mom and I are looking for a blue Chevy Nova. We'd like something with less than 60,000 miles for about $8,000. And 2 days later, we delivered the Chevy Nova at the Walgreens to her and her mother. And Rick Tompkinson was kind enough to let me use his dealer's license for that sale. And my partner and I made $600. And we went over to one of the local steak joints and grabbed a steak and celebrated and thought we just thought we were it. Ended up over on Speedway Drive in a little trailer. I rented a trailer for $300. It was a construction trailer out of Indianapolis, and we painted the lot by hand. Bought one of those big 5-gallon buckets of tar and just tarred the whole lot, and then painted a stripe across the front and painted our own sign. Preferred Auto was in red, and used the stencils, and went over to Stoller's, where they had the used furniture over off of Coliseum Boulevard, and went to their back room and bought orange and lime green furniture and put it in our $300 a month trailer. And for 6 weeks, I sat there and looked out front with all 7 cars that I had, and no one came on the lot. And we sold our first car after 6 weeks. During that time, I had to figure out how to make some money. I had paid my mortgage up 6 months in advance, and I was home every night for dinner. That was the deal. You're going to be home every night for dinner. And I learned how to detail cars, and I started wholesaling cars. So I started buying Chevys from the Ford dealer and literally driving them across the street to the Chevy store and say, hey, you want to buy this? And he'd say, yeah, how much? And I'd say, well, it's $6,000. I go back to the Ford guy and say, I'll give you $5,500. He said, okay, I'll take it. So I got $500 for driving cars back and forth, because they won't talk to each other. They hate each other. It's unbelievable. So I was the middleman. I figured it all out. Within 2 years, my partner and I had over 300 dealers that we were doing business with across the tri-state area. These are dealers that didn't want to carry, if they were a Chrysler store, they didn't want to carry an import on their lot. They wanted to have all Chryslers, used Chryslers. So whenever they traded for an import or traded for a GM product, they'd call us, and we would off the car. We would sell the car for them. We were selling 120 to 150 cars a month, wholesale. I'm still only selling 2 or 3 a month off my little lot over on Speedway Drive. Nobody's coming in. But we learned how to detail cars. I learned how to wholesale cars. I learned how to communicate with the banks. I started working with the banks on their repos. I didn't have the money to have cars out front, so I figured out how can I get free cars. Well, I'll go to the bank and I'll start selling the repos. And I'll just take a small percentage of whatever I sell it for you. Well, the banks were thrilled because they were taking the auction and getting guys were stealing them at the auction. They weren't getting any money out of them, so now I'll get your retail and I'll take a small percentage. The next thing I know, that little lot on Speedway Drive became packed. Less than a year after we were there, I got a phone call from a good friend of mine, Skip Johnson, Huey's Mobile Homes. And Skipper's was selling his place over on Lima Road, way, way out by DuPont. And so I didn't have any money, and Skip said, you don't need money. And I said, well, the bank says I need 20% down. He said, don't worry about that. We'll get you your 20% down. And I think he was asking $160,000 for the lot. And when I looked at the paperwork, it showed $190,000 with $30,000 down. I thought, well, I don't have 30 grand down. I thought it was only 160, and Skip's doing the wink at me like, you just keep your mouth shut. And next thing I knew, I bought a $160,000 lot with no money down, and I moved into my little lot on Speedway Drive. First weekend we were there, we sold 14 cars on a Saturday. And I still have the video of coming home, married, coming home and sitting down with my wife, and she's videotaping me having fun, and she goes, so how was your first big weekend at your new store? And I said, I think we're going to be okay. We sold 14 cars. What people don't realize is that I had to walk across the street to the payphone over at White Swan Plaza to call my loans into the bank. And I call up, and Brad Williams would pick it up, and I'd say, hey, Brad, okay, Teresa Smith, 1422, and I'd have to tell him the whole thing, and then I'd stand by the payphone. He'd call me back, okay, she's approved, roll it, and I do it all by hand, the whole contract by hand. And that's how we started selling cars over on Speedway Drive, way out on Speedway Drive, when everybody told me I was going to fail, because every thing that had been there had failed. Within 30 days after we moved in, they opened up the 4 lanes to Kendallville. Timing is everything. And we became very successful in a very, very short period. Matter of fact, we bought the lot that was right next to us. It was a little buy here, pay here lot. And we moved cars over there and started doing our buy here, pay here over there. Within the next year, we found a place up in Auburn. Really, I found a person. His name was Ron Stevens, that wanted to come work for me. At the time, he was working at the Oldsmobile dealership, Collins Old. And he was recommended highly, so I sat down and talked to him. I said, I want to open up a new store. I can't pay you what you're making. Matter of fact, I can hardly pay anything, but I can give you an opportunity. Maybe even an opportunity to become partner. Today, he's my partner in Auburn and on State Street. That was 23 years ago. Ron opened up that store in an old Tom's Donuts building. Then we thought, well, let's move again, and we're going to go ahead and go up to Kendallville. And I found a young man out of Mike Anderson Buick, and he came up from Indianapolis, moved up here, bought a house, completely believed in what we were and what we were all about, and he opened up our store up in Kendallville, Greg Bradshaw. Greg's been with me now for 19 years, and he runs Kendallville and LaGrange. During that time, the big store on Lima Road continues to get bigger and better, and we built our service department. We built our service department simply because it was important to me that I become an all-around dealer. I mean, there's the used car dealers on every corner, as we talked about, but there's very few used car dealers that have service. So we took the step. And the only way that I took the step was if I had somebody that I trusted to run the service department. And I found a guy that I knew, that I trusted very well. He was running Don Air's service department. And he came over and he helped me open up our first service department, and he ran that service department for me. And so we opened up the service. We then had, during that time, I had a bunch of young men that were working for me, one of them from Dana, believe it or not. And he was laid off at Dana, and he was just something special. And I had an opportunity to buy some land out on the Illinois Road. And one thing led to another. I ended up buying the 4 houses that were there on the corner. And we ripped that down and built our store on Illinois Road. And this young man, Rob Goodman, is still my general manager. And Rob's been with me for 15 years now. And Rob runs that store. And we've been very successful at that store along with our service department that we built. And I built that store on a what if. What if I fail? What am I going to do with a building that big? So I built it like a new car dealership. In case I failed, I could sell it to a new car store. The day before I opened, Tom Kelly called me and asked me what it would take to buy the dealership. I knew then that I had made the right decision, and I told him it wasn't for sale. And we now sell, at that store, we sell between 1,200 and 1,500 cars a year. And we outsell almost every single dealership on the auto mall, which is great. So today, we've got 6 dealerships, 2 service departments. We do a little over 3,000 cars a year. We do $4 million in service. Our service departments are open to the public, but we don't advertise. We don't really market it, simply because we're so busy already with our own customers. Imagine selling 3,000 cars a year. In 3 years, I've got 9,000 customers, and I got to service all their cars, or hopefully the majority of their cars. And so we're very, very busy. I've got 20 technicians. I've got 10 master technicians. And most of our guys can work on everything, which is really unusual in the automotive business. Most guys specialize in Chevrolet or specialize in Ford. Our guys can work on almost every single thing. We know our limitations. There's certain cars we won't work on, and we talked about it before dinner. And I mean, I'm not going to work on a Range Rover, a Jaguar, and I'm just not going to. It takes too much to do that. So we make sure we farm those out, or we're very honest with the customers, let them know. But if it's the mainstream cars, GM, Ford, Chrysler, Toyota, Honda, Lexus, we work on all of that. Subaru. I don't know anybody in town that's doing $4 million a year in service business. We are. And we're very proud of our service departments. We've got over 200 fleet customers, small business owners like yourself, and we do all of their fleet work. So if it's C&R carpet and they have one of their vans that needs to be fixed, we get it in right away. We'll be there at 6 o'clock in the morning. We'll fix it. We'll get them back on the road by 8 o'clock in the morning so that they don't miss a beat. It's really important for us to take care of our fleet customers. We have over 200 of the fleet customers. Again, 100% of that was word of mouth. We just didn't advertise. We took really good care of our customers. You talked about free car washes for life. That was an idea that I stole out of a little tiny used car dealership down in Fort Myers, Florida. I was down there on vacation with my in-laws, and I went by, and this guy's got about 8 cars out front. It says free car washes every Saturday. If you buy a car from me, he's out there with his son washing his customers' cars. And that's exactly what we started with. We started with a hose and a bucket, and we washed our customers' cars on Saturday, and now we've got our automated car washes at our 2 big stores, and we wash our customers' cars every Saturday. And it was just it was a gimmick, and it worked. And guess what? I don't think there's a dealership in town that doesn't have an automated car wash now, is there? Yeah, we brought it in 20-some years ago. I like it when they do things that we do first. So we tried the free oil changes. That was a big failure. They're not everything we've ever done. That cost me a fortune. We had to stop that after about 6 months. I never realized how much free oil changes would cost you. So we tried that part, and we did the 100,000-mile warranty. We wanted to separate ourselves from everybody. 6-year, 100,000-mile warranty. 5 years after we started that, General Motors came out with a 6-year, 100,000-mile warranty. I'm like, man, I'm pretty smart. GM stole my idea. So we stopped it 2 years ago. A lot of people don't even know we stopped it because all I was doing was duplicating what the manufacturer was already given. So why charge you for something that the manufacturer's already given? We could have done it, and we could have continued doing it, market it, but reality is all I was doing was duplicating something and charging you for it. So we felt it was important that with the way that the market's going today, that we get our prices down and get control of our expenses the best we can. 2008, as everybody knows, it was in business. 2008 was horrendous. It was September of 2008 when the financial crisis hit. Between the middle of September and the end of the year, my company lost almost $2 million in cash. We went from selling 250 cars a month. In December, we sold 43 cars. And I still had the same personnel. I had the same expenses. I had everything the same. And I didn't know what to do. I'd never gone backwards before. I remember my wife asking me if I was okay, and I said, yeah, I'm fine. What's wrong? And she said, I've never seen you like this. And I said, well, I've never failed. I don't know what to do. And so a lot of prayers, a lot of phone calls. This was a time where I got to really lean on some of the guys in the business world and some of my mentors and say, what do I do? How do I do this? And it basically came down to what would I want. And so for the next 60 days, or less than that, 30 days, I met with every single one of our employees, which was at the time 132 employees, from my part-time kid that's a lot porter to my top management. And I cut everybody's pay anywhere from 10 to 20%, depending on the person. I kept their job, and at the end of that 30 days, I had 131 employees. I had one technician that walked out because he didn't want his pay cut. And I understood, and I told every one of them, I understand if you leave. And he came back 6 months later, by the way, and asked for his job back, which he didn't get. But we kept everybody, and in 2009, we still lost money, but not very much. We lost money. In 2010, we broke even. In 2011, we started making money, and in 2012, we started making more money. And And that's when the internet thing started happening. And I think that's the biggest change in our market. Everybody always asks me, what's the biggest difference in the car market in the last 25 years? And it's by far, it's the internet. The internet has made everything transparent for your businesses and for ours. I mean, most customers know more about the car they walk in off the street to look at than I do. I told the story on one of my interviews with 101.7, and I said we had a guy that came in and looked at a Volkswagen 2 weeks ago, and it was one of these hyped up things. I don't know what the kids do with them, and they do all this stuff to this car, and I didn't know anything about it. And the kid walked in, and he knew that where we bought it from. He knew if it had any accidents, which it didn't. He knew the entire service record on it. He knew all the equipment. He knew the added-on equipment. He knew everything about the car. He knew where we were at price-wise in a 100-mile radius. He knew everything. And so he came in, he knew more about the car than we did. And he was there because our price was fair. It was close to home. It had to be in the top 2 or 3 in pricing. And it was what he wanted. It was a pretty easy sale. Because because they've done all the homework, all they got to do is make sure, as we tell everybody, it's not what they buy, it's not where they buy, it's who they buy it from. If he likes you and you're trusting and trustworthy and you're honest with him, he'll write the check and he'll buy the car. And that's all we have to do now, because we don't have to sell anything anymore. The internet does that for us. So that's the biggest change that we've got right now, and I love it. A lot of dealers hate it. They hate it because you have to be transparent. You can't bullshit your way through it anymore. I mean, you just can't. If the car's had 2 accidents, you got to say it's had 2 accidents. You can't lie to them because it's on the auto check or it's on the Carfax. So we're honest with our customers, which we always have been, or tried to be as honest as we could. So what's happened in the last 2 years, 3 years, you've seen a lot of those little dealers, they're gone. Because they can't. They can't compete with that because that's the stuff they buy. Hardest part for us has been finding the quality of cars that we sell. Used car business is great, but the supply of used cars is way down. Leasing now is at an all-time high, so we're going to see those cars come off lease in the next 2 or 3 years, which is great for us. But right now, the used cars are way down. The supply and demand's tough. So we're traveling all over the country to find the right used cars. We don't buy from used car dealers. We don't trust them. It's true. That's our number one rule. 90% of what we buy is from off-lease vehicles, bank cars, and trade-ins from new car dealers. We still have that same relationship with those 300 dealers. It's tightened up a little bit. There's certain dealers we do a lot of business with, especially out of the Detroit area. And then we buy a lot of leasing companies we do a bunch of business with. So we're very particular about where we buy our cars. We're not perfect, far from it. We service them, we do the best we can. There's a fine line because a lot of customers, it's all about pricing. So if I fix it too much, I'm never going to be in the market. I'm going to lose that sale. So we've got to say, okay, what's the most important things to fix? And then we're transparent again and show our customer what we've done and what we haven't done. A lot of customers don't care if it's got a scratch on the bumper. It's more important to them is the pricing. So the internet's been huge. 5 years ago, we spent $500,000 a year on advertising. Radio, TV, everybody saw my mug everywhere. They heard my voice all the time. Today, we spend more than that, and it's all on the internet. We don't hardly do anything on TV, hardly anything on radio. It's all on the internet. It's all on autotrader.com. It's on cars.com. It's on Google. Andy can throw them all out. On all these things that I have to make sure that our name goes to the top, and that everything that when you search for a car, that Preferred Auto jumps up top. So we spent a lot of time pushing our name as high as we can. We do a lot of video work. We do tons of social media. Everybody has to take a picture of the car that they sell and post it on their Facebook, and they share it on our Facebook, and then everybody's supposed to click that they like it and share it. And I mean, it's this whole big game that you've got to play right now, and it's okay. We like it. I mean, it's working really, really well for us, and it's taken a lot for me to get used to, but it's working out well. So that's been the biggest change in the industry for, I think, for everybody, but for the car industry, the one that I know, that's been the biggest thing. I don't know if we're going to grow anymore. It's all about the people. We were talking about, when I open up my next store, and if you heard me, I never opened up a store until I had the right person. It's not about the store. It's not about me. It's the people I surround myself with. I mean, I'm just a college dropout from New Haven, Indiana. I surround myself with guys they're smarter than me. The women that are better than I am in many, many things. And if I surround myself with winners, you're going to be a winner. You surround yourself with losers, you're going to be a loser. So I surround myself with people that I think are winners, and I make sure that when I build a new store or open up a new store, I've got the winners in place to do that. So that's been a huge part of my success, is the people that I have. We just had our corporate meeting last Friday, and one of the things, when we did a survey, one of the things that our employees asked for was for us to have better communication. The other thing that they did was they said that the number one reason that they work there isn't the money. Number one reason they work there is because we care about them as a person, about their family. And I shared with all my employees, I have a warranty company. So when you buy a car from me, if you buy a warranty, you're buying that warranty from me. Not because I want to make a bunch of money. It's because, and that's part of the reason I like to make the money, but that's not it. It's that we had 6 or 7 different warranty companies in the first 5 years, and they all went out of business. So they collect all this money from my customers, and then when it was time to pay claims, they turned around and walked away. So I said, well, we're going to start our own. We're going to do it. We're going to self-insure it. We're going to start it. And so I did. And 10 years ago, I had a new CFO that I hired. His name's Bill Bandor, and Bill's great guy, unbelievable. He's got more letters past his name than I don't even know. I don't understand all the stuff he does, but he's our CFO, and he, very, very smart man. And after about 3 years, he said, hey, I got to ask you, this GFW, this warranty company, it's the name of the company, GFW. He said, I know W is for warranty. I can't figure out what the G and F is, because your daughter's Alexandria and your son's Jacob, your wife's Ann. What is it? He goes, because this thing's really successful and it's really grown. I said, well, number one, W is not for warranty. I said, GFW is my priorities: God, family, and work, in that order. And he just smiled and said, you never cease to amaze me. I know why I work for you. And I share that with you because I share it with my employees. I don't shout it from the mountaintops. I think I said shit 3 or 4 times. I'm not, the perfect little boy. But I do have God in my life, and family is very important. And I work's there, but it's there because of the other 2 things. And if I keep everything in my priorities in order, and keep my faith first and my family as a close second, work all falls into place. And if I treat my employees that way, I promise you, and if you do the same thing, you can't help but be successful. You can't help but attract people that want to work. Lou Holtz always said, as long as you care about me as much as I care about you, we're going to get along just fine. In other words, Lou was saying, I care about you, young man. I care about you. I care about you as a person. But do you really care about me? And that's what I try and emphasize with all my employees. So do I know all of them real well? Not as well as I'd like, but I try, and I think they know where I'm coming from. Could they make more money? Could Andy make more money at a big dealership? Probably, but Andy doesn't look, because I know that if his kids have a hockey game on Tuesday and it starts at 4, and if I see him at that store any later than 3:45, I'm going to hit him across the head, because you only get one chance to watch your kid at a hockey game. You only get one chance to go to your 4th grade choir. Work's going to be there tomorrow. We close earlier than any other dealership in the city. Always have, and we try and close for 3-day weekends as much as O'Daniels. O'Daniels is awesome, by the way. I won't say much about anybody else, but O'Daniels has done a fantastic job of the way they run their business, and they just do it right. So we try and give those 3-day weekends as much as we can. We try and make sure that all of our employees are home for dinner, because I think it's really, really important. Because if you're happy at home, you're happy at work. So that's where I'm at right now. I've got a few other businesses that I have failed at. We won't talk about those things. I've learned that you stick with what you know. So if anybody wants to talk about the basketball business, Fort Wayne Fury, Isaiah Thomas is not one of my favorite guys in the world, so I can go there. That was a long time ago. But and my son, I'll tell you a little about my family. I'm still married to the same wonderful woman, Ann. My daughter graduated from Purdue University, and she works for me. I own